Marcus Wellington checked his Rolex for the third time in 5 minutes, 8:47 p.m. The board meeting had run late again, and now his custom Mercedes was sputtering like a dying animal on Route 29, 30 miles from anywhere that mattered. As CEO of Wellington Technologies, Marcus had spent 15 years building an empire that made him one of the most powerful Black executives in the country. He'd overcome poverty, racism, and a devastating car accident that had left him paralyzed from the waist down. But none of that success meant anything now, stranded on a dark highway with a dead phone and a useless vehicle. The October wind bit through his $1,000 suit as he maneuvered his wheelchair out of the driver's seat, using the custom controls he'd had installed. Pride had always been Marcus's armor, but tonight it felt more like a cage. He watched headlights approach and pass, each one a reminder of his vulnerability. Then, finally, an old pickup truck slowed down, its brake lights glowing red in the darkness like a promise or a threat. Sarah Chen's day had already been 16 hours long when she saw the disabled Mercedes. Her body ached from replacing a transmission, her hands were stained with grease that wouldn't come out, and her daughter's text about needing money for a school trip sat unanswered in her phone. At 42, Sarah had learned that life rarely offered easy choices, only necessary ones. When her husband died 3 years ago, he'd left her with 2 kids, a struggling auto repair shop, and debt that seemed to grow like weeds no matter how hard she worked. Most women would have sold the shop, but Sarah wasn't most women. She'd grown up watching her father fix cars in their garage, learning that engines made sense when people often didn't. Now, seeing the man in the wheelchair beside the luxury sedan, every instinct told her to stop. She pulled over, grabbed her toolbox, and approached cautiously. The man was clearly wealthy, everything about him screamed success and power, but his eyes held something she recognized, the fear of being helpless, of needing help you weren't sure would come. "Engine trouble?" Sarah asked, her voice neutral, professional. She'd learned long ago not to let people see her judging them, even when she was. The man looked up, and Sarah was struck by the intelligence in his dark eyes, the set of his jaw that suggested someone used to being in control. "Yes," he said, and she heard the reluctance in his admission. "It just died. I'm Marcus Wellington." He said his name like it should mean something. Sarah just nodded. "Sarah Chen. I'm a mechanic. Mind if I take a look?" She didn't wait for permission, moving to the hood. Behind her, she heard him maneuvering his wheelchair closer, heard the soft whir of the motor. "I can pay whatever you want," Marcus said, and Sarah almost smiled. Rich people always thought money solved everything. "Let's see if I can fix it first," she replied, popping the hood. For the next hour, she worked in the dim light of her flashlight, her hands moving with the confidence of 20 years' experience. Marcus watched in silence, occasionally offering to hold the light, and Sarah found herself oddly aware of his presence. He didn't make awkward small talk or hover anxiously like most clients. He simply observed, and something about that quiet attention made her work more carefully, more precisely. "Your fuel pump shot," Sarah finally announced, wiping her hands on a rag that was already beyond redemption. "I can rig something to get you into the city, but you'll need a proper replacement." Marcus nodded, looking relieved and frustrated in equal measure. "How much do I owe you?" Sarah considered lying, charging him what a rich man wouldn't even notice, but something stopped her. "Nothing. Just doing what anyone should do." Marcus's eyebrows rose. "I insist. At least let me pay for your time." They went back and forth 3 times before Sarah finally accepted his business card, if only to end the argument. Wellington Technologies, CEO Marcus Wellington. So, he wasn't just successful, he was seriously successful. "Call me," Marcus said, his voice earnest. "If you ever need anything." Sarah nodded, not believing for a moment that she would. Rich people said things like that all the time, and they rarely meant it. She helped him get back in his car, showed him the makeshift solution she'd created, and watched him drive away into the night. Only later, lying in bed too tired to sleep, did she realize she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the vulnerability in his eyes, the strength in his voice, and the way he looked at her like she was more than just a mechanic covered in grease. Marcus couldn't explain why he kept checking his phone, hoping for a call from a stranger who had no reason to contact him. He'd given his card to hundreds of people over the years. It was what you did in business, a reflexive gesture of networking, but Sarah Chen was different. She'd helped him without wanting anything in return, without the obsequious eagerness he'd come to expect from people who discovered who he was. In board meetings, he found his mind wandering, remembering the competent way she'd handled his car, the quiet dignity she'd carried despite her worn clothes and tired eyes. His executive assistant noticed. "Are you expecting an important call, Mr. Wellington?" she asked after the third time he checked his phone during a presentation. Marcus forced himself to focus. He had a company to run, millions of dollars in decisions to make daily, and no time to obsess over a chance encounter on a dark highway. But late at night, alone in his penthouse apartment, he wondered about her life, her story, and why someone so skilled was driving a truck that looked older than his youngest employee. He wondered, and he hoped, and he felt foolish for both. When Sarah finally called, it wasn't pride that had stopped her for 2 weeks, it was fear. Fear that Marcus Wellington had only offered help out of guilt or obligation. Fear that she'd be just another charity case to a man who probably wrote checks to feel good about himself. But when her 6th bank rejection came through, when her daughter's school sent another tuition reminder, when the roof started leaking in the shop's office, Sarah swallowed her pride and dialed the number. "Mr. Wellington, this is Sarah Chen. We met a couple weeks ago, Sarah. I was hoping you'd call." The genuine warmth in his voice surprised her. They met for coffee the next day, and Sarah laid out her situation with the blunt honesty of someone who had no energy left for pretense. She needed a business loan to keep her shop afloat, to upgrade equipment, to compete with the chain auto shops that were squeezing out small operators like her. 6 banks had rejected her application, each with a different excuse, but Sarah suspected the real reason was simpler. She was a woman trying to run a business in a man's world. Marcus listened without interrupting, his dark eyes focused, his mind clearly working through the problem. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Tell me about your shop," he finally said. "Not the financial projections, tell me what makes it special." Sarah talked for an hour, and Marcus listened like her words were the most important thing in the world. She told him about her late husband's dream, about learning to rebuild engines before she could drive, about the regular customers who trusted her because she never upsold them or cut corners. She told him about her kids, Emma, 16 and brilliant, and James, 12 and obsessed with computers. She told him about the satisfaction of fixing something broken, of solving puzzles that made sense when so much of life didn't. When she finished, Marcus was smiling. "I'll make some calls," he said simply. "But I also have a proposal. Wellington Technologies has a fleet of 70 vehicles. Our current service contract is up for renewal next month. I want to give you the contract." Sarah stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "Mr. Wellington, Marcus," he interrupted. "And I'm serious. You're skilled, honest, and you need the business. I need someone I can trust. It's good business for both of us." Over the next month, Marcus made good on his promise. He connected Sarah with a bank that actually looked at her qualifications instead of just seeing a woman in a non-traditional field. He introduced her to other business owners who might need her services. And slowly, carefully, they became friends. The Wellington Technologies board meeting was tense. Marcus's CFO, Robert Henderson, pulled up a spreadsheet showing their fleet maintenance costs. "I have to question this contract with Chen Auto Repair," Robert said, his tone carefully neutral. "She's an unknown quantity. We could save 15% with AutoNation." Marcus kept his expression calm, but inside, anger simmered. Sarah Chen is one of the most skilled mechanics I've encountered. Her work is exceptional, and her prices are fair. Unless you have a specific complaint about the quality of her service? Robert exchanged glances with 2 other board members. "It's just unusual, Marcus. This personal connection. People are talking." Marcus leaned forward in his wheelchair, his voice quiet but edged with steel. "Let me be clear. I gave this contract to Sarah Chen because she's qualified, because she's honest, and because I believe in giving people the opportunities they deserve. The same opportunities one once needed. Does anyone here have a legitimate business objection?" The room fell silent. But Marcus knew the whispers would continue about favoritism, about his judgment being compromised, about whether he was thinking with his heart instead of his head. And the truth was, they weren't entirely wrong. Sarah had become important to him in ways that had nothing to do with business, and everything to do with the connection he felt every time they talked. Sarah's success brought its own problems. Other shop owners in town, men who'd ignored her for years, suddenly had opinions. Wellington Technologies? Must be nice having connections, said Tom Brennan, who ran the shop 2 blocks over, his tone making connections sound dirty. I earned that contract, Sarah shot back, but the rumors persisted. The worst part was that her daughter noticed. Everyone at school is talking about you, and that CEO guy, Emma said one night at dinner, her teenage eyes too knowing. Are you dating him? No. Sarah's response was too quick, too defensive. He's a client, Emma. A friend. Mom, I'm not stupid. You talk about him constantly. You get all dressed up for your business meetings. And you smile at your phone when he texts. Sarah wanted to deny it, but Emma was right. Somewhere along the way, Marcus had become more than a client, more than a friend. He was the first person she wanted to tell about her day, the voice that made her heart beat faster when her phone rang. But the complications seemed insurmountable. Their different worlds, the age gap, the professional relationship, and most of all, the fear of losing what they had by wanting more. Still, when Marcus called suggesting dinner at a real restaurant instead of their usual coffee shop meetings, Sarah said yes, without hesitation. The charity gala at the Riverside Hotel was Marcus's idea, a chance to show Sarah the world her hard work was building toward, to introduce her to people who could help her business grow. Sarah wore a dress she'd bought specially for the occasion, feeling simultaneously elegant and like she was playing dress-up. But when Marcus saw her, the way his face lit up made every penny worth it. You look beautiful, he said simply, and Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. The evening was magical, conversations with people who treated her as an equal, Marcus's hand occasionally brushing hers, the growing certainty that what existed between them was too powerful to ignore. But as they left, walking through the dim parking garage, 3 men emerged from the shadows. Sarah saw the calculation in their eyes immediately. A man in a wheelchair with a Rolex and expensive suit was an easy target. Marcus's whole body tensed. Please don't hurt me, he said quietly, and Sarah heard the shame beneath the words, the hatred of his own vulnerability. I can't walk. Just take the wallet. Please. One of the men laughed, a sound that made Sarah's blood run cold. Wheelchair boy's polite. That's cute. As he reached for Marcus, Sarah moved without thinking, stepping between them, her keys protruding from her fist like brass knuckles. Touch him, she said, her voice deadly calm, and I'll make you regret you were born.